We passed a herd of cattle that was being pecked by white egrets before. Oh, they always go on about this kind of rubbish. This was once the domain of little-known Jewish pirates who once sailed the waters of Jamaica. Their history captures a somewhat different side of the island than its recently adopted tourism slogan, Jamaica, get all right. Jews have been a recognised part of Jamaica's cultural heritage since 1655, when Britain took power from Spain. Oh dear, isn't that the same year that what's his name? Cromwell, Jews, 1655. Oh yeah. Oliver Cromwell, 1655. Ben Israel, there is some evidence of established Jews before 1655. Oh my goodness. Resettlement of Jews in England, 1655. So Jamaica. Now, when was New Amsterdam? New Amsterdam Jews. New Amsterdam Jews. I think that was 1654. In August 1654, the first known Jewish settler, Jacob Bar Simpson, came to New Amsterdam. Didn't Peter's story this time go off his rocker saying, don't let these in. Do not let the Jew in. Story this time attempted to have Jews in a friendly way to depart. Amsterdam's Jewish crusader. Petition to expel the Jews from New Amsterdam. There you go. Times of Israel. Colonial New Amsterdam spans disgusting Jews from militia. So, they weren't wanted. Why did Peter Stuyvesant want to expel the Jews from New Amsterdam? An early history of the Jews in New York, 1654. I digress. So, the Jews have been in Jamaica. So, seems to be something about 1654, 1655, 1656, doesn't it? When Britain took power from Spain and welcomed Jewish immigrants, come on, through, though some date their presence here in Columbus's second voyage to the Americas, many were successful gold traders. Hang on. Must have been persecuted gold traders and sugar merchants. Some, like Moses Cohen Enrique, a crony of Captain Henry Morgan, who once plundered the modern-day equivalent of almost $1 billion from a Spanish galleon, were marauding buccaneers. Persecuted buccaneers, no doubt. Though today's Jamaicans' persecuted Jewish population is fewer than 200, there are at least 21 Jewish burial. Jamaica's got 6,000 Jews. What are they on about? Jamaican Jews. Jamaican Jew population. 400. Recently, that nearly 424,000 Jamaicans are what? 500,000? Oh my God. A recent study. So 500,000, nearly 500,000. And they were there from 1494 to the present, either by birth or ancestry. And this one is saying that there's only 21 Jews, or fewer than 200 Jews. Someone's accountant is seriously flawed. Since 27, don't know how you say it, man. Caribbean Volunteer Expeditions, a non-profit for you guy, big profits for Jews, focused on cultural preservation throughout the Caribbean, has been leading groups like mine in an effort to document this largely forgotten history by transcribing epitaphs and compiling an inventory of grave sites with trips spearheaded by Rachel Frankel, Beatrice Frankel, Louis Frankel. Louis Frankel was the first Jew banker in Sweden. Beatrice Frankel is the head of the NHS Trust with some other Jew. Oh, she's head of psychiatric unit or something. These Frankels get about. So this one's a New York-based architect. I've done something on architecture on the channel, so you can check that out. It hopes to promote conservation of Jewish cemeteries and raise public awareness of them. In the 18th century, the French Enlightenment writer Guillaume Thomas Reynard advocated that Jews adopt Jamaica as a homeland in the Caribbean, since it had already become a locus of Semitic commerce. With Kingston just a 4-hour flight from New York, the island could still become a vital part of Jewish life if this part of its history were better known. As usual, the Jews always have the ace up the sleeve, don't they? Some of those trying hardest to make this happen are American descendants of those Jamaicans, like David Van de Cordova Jr., a 54-year-old Baptist lawyer. So he's a Baptist, he's a Jamaican, which is a Sephardic Jew, and he's a Baptist lawyer. Oh man, I bet he sells second-hand cars as well, part-time. Oh, he's also a part-time genealogist. We'll have to go through one time with Jacob Rothschild talking about genes. Yeah, so he's in Beaumont in Texas. Two of his ancestors founded the Jamaica Gleaner newspaper in 1834. Another significant time, 1830s. You've got the Opium Wars just kicking off then, with the Sassoons supplying all of the opium into China via, the British Empire in Canton. Among others, I think it was the Americans, Germans, Russians, like the 10 nations. So that's how active Jews are, because, why would Vidal Sassoon, why would the Sassoons supply opium to non-Jewish interest countries? Doesn't make any sense, and we only look at things that make sense. So, unless there's evidence to prove otherwise, I'm saying that all of the Opium Wars and all of the attacks on China were all by Jews. Like, Jews are funding it, it's a Jewish idea, Jews are using all of the methodology of the subversion and the terrorist tactics that they're still doing today. So at Orange Street Cemetery near Trenchtown, the neighbourhood Bob Marley made famous, and Bob Marley's a Jew descendant, of which there are nearly 500,000 Jamaicans. Oh my God. I knew those yardies, there was something going on there. I watched as he crouched wearing a beige bird-watching hat and generously pocketed alpinist's vest and drew the intricate finials of his Jewish ancestors' headstone. Bob Marley, I've got to check that out. Bob Marley is a Jew. Jew. He's a Jew. So, a Jamaican originally from New Zealand claims Syrian Jewish origins. So Bob Marley's a Jew. And that is a Sinclair in there as well. Sinclair. Jewish origins. Bob Marley the Jew. He was a Jew. He was a working Jew. Jew, 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 Jew. Jew, 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 Jew. Jew, 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 Jew. Singing, goy, 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 goy. Oy vey, oy vey. Right, so that ties that bind then. Oof. Oof. Interesting. Reggae, Rastafari, Judaism in Israel. Oh. I've been connected to Israel from when I was a child through my father, my mother. We have a strong belief in history. If you've heard of my father, you've heard of Exodus. We are strongly connected to the history of Israel. We feel a very spiritual and personal connection to that land and the people of that land. So this is an honour and a blessing, and we will continue to have the connection no matter what anybody says or does, and continue to support Israel. These are the words of Ziggy Marley, son of reggae legend and Rastafari Robert Nesta Marley, an accomplished recording artist in his own right without any help from Jews, as he received the Jewish National Fund Shalom Peace Award on oh my God, on the 14th of November 2015 for his contributions to clean water and support for Israel. For many people, it's easy to assume that by connection he was referring to his marriage to Israeli artist-manager Orly Agai, or the claim Bob Marley's paternal grandmother Ellen Broomfield was a Jewish woman. However, as far back as 2011, oh my God, Ziggy Marley revealed that his historical connection with Israel and Judaism stems from his own Rastafarian background. As a Rastafarian, for all my adult life, I should be the last person to forget that although most people alive today are familiar with the appearance of a Rastafarian, very few know what that appearance actually means. Take for instance the caption on YouTube video, wondering if this colourfully dressed man calling on his audience to say a prayer for the Reb is a Lubavitcher celebrating Purim. What is this connection that Ziggy Marley alludes to? Oy vey, goy, send shekels. Even today, for many people, Rastafari is a modern subculture, like the Goths. What? The Goths go way back. The Goths even have, like, Loki in the sagas naming the Jew. Another modern subculture. The Jews made them a modern subculture. The Goths are the Visigoths of Andalusia, southern Spain, and formerly of Gotland, well, and still remain of Gotland in Sweden, and they're a Germanic tribe of the Aryan race. Rastafari emerged in the 1950s, inspired by the coronation of Ras, an Ethiopian title of nobility, Tafahari Makonnen, as Emperor Haile Selassie, the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of Judah, elect of God, light and saviour of the world, and 350th monarch of a dynasty that claims from King Solomon of Israel and Nigist Makeda of Ethiopia, the so-called Queen of Sheba. What happened to him then? That's the father, what's his name, Emperor Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie. Assassinated? How did he die? In the Jubilee Palace. Let's have a look. It says he's a Jew. See no matches when you put in Jew. Control F. The plot thickens. Doesn't look like any Vesta I've seen. It's fairly noble, dare I say it. What's this now? Many reggae singers of Bob Marley's generation belonged to the 12 tribes of Israel, which supported youth from disadvantaged backgrounds to earn a living. The band Israel Vibration recorded their first album through a grant from the 12 tribes. On the sleeve of this seminal Are We a Warrior, Ijameen Levi, Trevor Sutherland. He was born Trevor Sutherland and he became Ijameen Levi. Inscribed the blessing of Levi from Deuteronomy. The British singer born Max Elliott in 1961, better known as Maxi Priest, a reference to the tribe of Levi. And the Jewish reaction, the most fascinating are the Rastafarians, who in turn largely model themselves on the Jews. The Rastas believe that Africans are of the lost tribes of Israel, with a special identification with the King David. You know, like, there's only 3 races. There's the Europid, which is the Caucasoid, which is basically the Aryan. Then you've got the Negroid, which is basically the African, you know, the continents. And then you've got the Mongoloid, which is basically like the non-white Asians, because there are a lot of white Asians, but there's not a lot of African Asians. So the non-white Asians would be the Mongoloid. You know, they are the 3 branches. So I guess, yeah, whatever the Negroids are, that may be more in line with, you know, the pure African. Just throwing it out there. So, whereas the Jewish is the mixed, isn't it? The Jews aren't a race, they're an ethnic tribe, to the tribe. They don't belong, like, they belong to all. Let's just have a look at colours of Jews. Colours of Jews. So when we're talking about people of colour, an early Zionist poem explains that the colour white symbolises great faith, blue, the appearance of the firmament, the original dark, later enlightenment, blue in Judaism, blue, 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 the colours of Jews. Are Jews people of colour? They are when it suits them. Like, would you take him for a Jew? I would not be him. What the? Oh my, that's an Irish name, isn't it? What's the, Brendan Behan, is he a Jew? Oh my God, this is big news if he is. Because he was the IRA. Brendan Behan. Is he a Jew? Oh, Paddy. What's going on with you? Where's he gone now? Tonight, is she Behan? Oh, that's mad, that. Because you know what? You know this Brendan Behan? Well, he was brought up, right? Brendan Behan. He was brought up like totally wrapped around like all the Marxist sort of educating. By the early 60s, Behan reached the peak of his fame. He spent increasing amounts of time in New York. Oh my God. Famously declaring to America, my newfound land, the man that hates you hates the human race. Well, he must be a Jew, mustn't he? He began spending time with Harpo Marx, Arthur Miller, and Bob Dylan. He even turned down his invitation to the inauguration of John F. Kennedy, a Catholic killed by Jews. What's it saying about Collins there? Behan eventually died on the 20th of March, age 41. Oh, that's the same age as who's the Irish yoke? Luke Kelly. He died at age 41 when he collapsed in the bar in Dublin. And he was given the full IRA card of honour. Oh, I'll tell you, it was described by several newspapers as the biggest Irish funeral of all time, after Collins and Parnell. I think Parnell's a bit dubious as well, and I've got to wonder about Collins now, because Collins was the one who was getting all the bombs, and he worked in the City of London and was cashing in all the bonds and that, which was making the IRA at the time really powerful. Jesus, Pat, I think you've had one too many there, lad. You better go for a lie down. But yeah, he was in jail in Liverpool. He's got to be a Jew with that chutzpah. Oh, that's boss fine, that. Where is he? Danny Behan. The Jew. He's got to be a Jew, him. Gotta be. I don't think the Times of Israel are going to let me be a reporter for the Times of Israel anytime soon, put it that way. So I think, I don't think they've taken any non-Jews on. So, edit. I thank you for all your feedback and constructive criticism. My responses can be found at the following articles. Yes, Ashkenazi Jews, including Gal Gadot, are people of colour. Ashkenazi Jews are still people of colour. Right, so for as long as we can remember our people of all, I bet you £1,000 in IOUs, obviously, that the Jew is the people of colour, and the Africans and Arabs and anyone else who's not a Jew is not a people of colour, because are Jews people of colour? Yes, they are. This is all about public information, and they're the ones who are just constantly putting it out. I mean, come on, 500,000. There's 200 Jews in Jamaica on one page, and then the next page that says there's 424,000 Jews in Jamaica. And that all the Rastafarians, basically the Jews. Where are the Rastafarians saying, that the Jews are a bad lot, like? It just doesn't happen. So you've got to think, what the heck's going on? There's just no resistance to Jews from these, the likes of the Chinese, or is there? Where is it? Where is the resistance to Jewish hegemony other than the few tiny voices in the dark? Africa's political leaders are failing the continent by allowing China to plunder its assets and resources. Africa's history is laced with decades of colonial exploitation. Well, the colonies, I'm telling you. You know, I'm in Britain, I know what Britain's like, and Britain has not prospered from the colonies at all. Quite the opposite. You know, look at these children. Right, let's say, industrial revolution, English workhouse children. Workhouses were where poor people who had no job or home lived. Let's have a look at the images. It's just not a lot to support that these children were not given a bad time. Dickens wrote about it, Oliver Twist. You know, Fagin is the Jew. They're all working for Fagin. Oliver Twist. Oliver Twist. If you just knew about the Jew in Britain, you would know that. No, that's the depiction in black and white, obviously, but Dickens was the great observer. That's who he was. And he observed that the children were being, used as child slaves, basically, to rob, to pilfer, do all sorts, but we get told about colonial exploitation, which together with development assistance programs such as the IMF. Now what's never really mentioned is that Germany poured absolutely endless amounts into Africa, and then was stripped of all of it during the Boer War. I won't go into that now. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and China's strategic interests in Africa have become more pronounced. The Asian superpower, which is only a third world country, a lot like Israel, is in search of resources like oil, gas, metals to meet its energy imports and construction demands, and to sustain its manufacturing industry. More recently, which manufacturing industry in China is basically cars and plastic toys. Cars you don't need, and plastic toys you need even less. More recently, China has branched into non-resource investments like building infrastructure through the Road and Belt Initiative. Isn't that nice? African leaders have embraced economic engagement with China. Well, I'm sure they had lots of choice in that, which is perceived as a welcome alternative to the continent's long-standing Euro-American ties. It's just never Israel, is it? Israeli Premier in Middle Israel. The African-Israeli rapprochement is about poetic justice. Israel-Africa relations. Israel signs deal with Chad's President Deby. Arabs should thwart Israel's ambitions in Africa. Oh, what are Israel's ambitions in Africa then? Israel wants to be in Africa, but to keep Africans out of Israel. Boss. Israeli leaders still ache to deport African refugees. Illegal and IDF will shoot African infiltrators. Israeli official tells shocked activists. That's in Ynet News. Just last month. Is Israel Africa's new best friend? Israel Prime Minister decides thousands of African migrants must not obey go. IDF will shoot African infiltrators. Israeli official tells shocked activists. Exactly a year ago, the issue of African migrants in Israel topped the Taliban, Jews. So let's see. Arabs should thwart Israel's ambitions in Africa, but Arabs never do they? I mean, when was the last time that Arabs thwarted anything about Israel? I haven't seen Syria go into Israel yet. Tel Aviv is spreading its tentacles in Africa in the guise of helping the continent. And this is by Azad Abdul Rahman, special to Gulf News. Also, this is Gulf News, or maybe this could be, and he holds his breath. As the saying goes, don't hold your breath. Dare I say it, this could be a, oh yeah, the image credit goes to Bloomberg even, so. So for years Israel has built many projects in Africa, including medical technology, agriculture, water purification technologies, development, security, military training, covering basic needs of the African continent. How benevolent. It is well known that these projects are not provided solely for the sake of Africa, but they are meant to help Israel improve its image and thus end its isolation under the growing world criticism of its colonial treatment of Palestinians. So, there's a link with Jews and colonies. Well, isn't that interesting? But I'm sure that it's meant to point at the European colonial version. But in truth, it should be pointing at the Jewish colonial version. So most recently, Africa has drawn more attention in Israeli newspapers, as in focusing falsely, of course, on a claim, the unity of tragedy between Jewish and African people who suffered from slavery, just as Jews suffered, look at that, Holocaust in thingy brackets. Because they can't say it now because it's totally been debunked. The Holocaust never was. And displacement, other than the Holodomor of Ukraine, which is horrific. And you can go to holodomor.info for more on that. So during the last 3 years, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu visited Africa 3 times. Now Africa is a continent, it's not a country, including a historic visit to Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia and Liberia. So you think, oh, he's been to 3 times, but he hasn't. He's been to 4 countries on 1 visit alone. I mean, there was one time when he went to 7 countries in 3 days. The man has got like flying skates, I'm telling you. During his visit, Netanyahu was the first non-African leader to address the West African Conference. There's even an African country now, right, that it's in West Africa actually. Africa is it Bill's first synagogue or something. They've decided after looking at all the other religions that they want to become Jews. So Israel's loaned them a synagogue. How come you put in I see first? Zimbabwe build their first synagogue as a Zimbabwe. Could be Zimbabwe. Decades after Jews went in, some Arabs want them back. Arabs want Jews back. Seriously. African Jews hope to build synagogue. I think that's it. Decades after Jews went into exile, some Arabs want them back. I'd only be wanting them back to put them in prison. Arab dictators seeking Western approval are not the only ones. Why the heck is this website so rubbish? So, 4th of April 2019 in Dubai. It is simply called the Villa. Its white walls have no markings and an official permit is pending for its founders, though. The low-key opening of the Arab world's first new synagogue in generations signals the dawn of a new Jewish revival. Standing near the beachfront in Dubai, the synagogue offers Hebrew classes and kosher catering and has just acquired a rabbi. Now, isn't that funny? Because Iceland, the famous Jew country over there in the middle of the Atlantic, just got a rabbi too. So Dubai gets a rabbi. Iceland gets a rabbi. See, Iceland welcomes its first rabbi while considering a ban on circumcision. African Jews hope to build a synagogue. DNA links Lemba Jews to ancestors from Israel 2,000 years ago. Miami Beach, Florida. A group of African Jews linked to their ancestors in Israel hope to build a synagogue in Zimbabwe. We are not converts, said Modrech Mezerara, a member of the Lemba group. We are descendants from Jews who migrated from Israel 2,000 years ago. The Lemba Jews maintain many of their Judaic practices dating back thousands of years. Florida International Professor Tudor Parfit recently discovered them. They don't eat pork. They practice male circumcision. They wear yarmulkes, Parfit told him. So, Parfit, author of Black Jews in Africa. Parfit's selling a book. And I found some Jews, you see, to the black Jews in Africa and the Americas. My book, send shekels. Let's have a look.
Some surprising new DNA evidence has linked a group of people in Zimbabwe to Jews from the Holy Land over 2,000 years ago. Now, their oral traditions have always claimed their ancestors were from Israel, but science has never been able to prove it until now. Constance Jones spoke with a member of the Lemba group about life as an African Jew in this week's Faith and Family Report.
They don't eat pork, they practice male circumcision, and they wear yarmulkes. The Lemba group out of South Africa has kept many of their Judaic practices, dating back thousands of years. Modric Mayurasera is from Zimbabwe.
We are not converts. We are descendants of Jews migrated from Judea to Africa approximately 2,000 years ago.
The group of Lemba Jews were recently discovered by this man, Professor Tudor Parfit from Florida International University.
The Jewish world is coming around to the idea that they have got black cousins not only in Zimbabwe but elsewhere in the world.
Parfit, author of Black Jews in Africa and the Americas, spent time in Zimbabwe where he realized the group could have a real connection to Israel. So he used science to unlock the mystery.
This was one of the first occasions in the history of the world where genetics is able to answer historical issues.
DNA testing proved that without a doubt, the Lemba group has a direct genetic connection to a Jewish priestly line.
Endless. It is.